Hey, welcome to another video, and in this video we're going to start with this and end with this. Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So in this video we're going to take a basic base just like this, and then we're going to be turning it into something a little bit cool, like this on your miniatures. And now this video is basically aimed for beginners to get your bases done, and a lot of the time basing is kind of overlooked. This is some of the basic materials that I use, and this is sand. It's got like some railway sort of like wood chippings in it, some balsa, bits of old slate and stuff like that. So what I think what we'll do is we'll glue a little bit of a stone on here just to sort of give a little bit of visual interest, kind of, so it's not just going to be flock and mud. I'm also going to be doing an alternative way in the video as well, so you're kind of getting like two ways of doing your bases in this. And then at the very end, so stick around to the end of the video, you're going to get an actual practical sort of demonstration of me actually doing it with a miniature on the base, because it's all well and good me showing you how to do it with like nothing on the base, but in most cases you're going to have a miniature on the base. So here I've just got a bit of super glue, finding a decent piece of stone that looks cool and just gluing it in place. But you get a lot of these basic materials from your local hobby stores or Games Workshop directly, even like things like B&Q and Homebase. So once the glue is dried, you just get some PVA glue. This is like a cheap bottle I bought from Tesco's quite a few years ago, and I've still got quite a lot of it. I think it cost me like £2 for like two litres of the stuff. So yeah, I've been using it for quite a while now, but just put it in a little pallet. You can add a little bit of water if you want, but if not, just slap it on. And basically what you want to do is use an old brush and just get the base nicely covered. Doesn't matter how thick it is, just bear in mind that this is going to take a while to dry. So what I would do if you're batch painting or batch your bases is to do them all and then put them to one side and put them on a tray or somewhere nice and warm, so like an airing cupboard or just on a shelf out of the way, and just give them a good couple of hours to dry. Normally overnight to be 100% safe, because if the glue isn't fully dry, once you actually add paint and stuff to this, it can reactivate the glue and it'll just pull everything off. So here we are with this base material, which is, again, like I said, it's sand. It's like some railway model scenic stuff, which looks like bits of little wood chippings and sawdust, and some like basing material from Army Baser, like the black balsa wood. So it's all just been thrown in there, and I've just dunked it in, tidy up the edges, and that's it done. So once that's been left to dry for some time, and I think I've left this to dry for a couple of hours, you kind of need to seal this to really sort of stop things from coming off. Now you can prime it black, that could kind of work, but it's still not gonna fully seal it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make like a sort of like a wash with some PVA glue. I'm going to mix it right down with some water, and I'm going to add some brown painting because I might as well base coat it at the same time as I'm sealing it. So give that a really good mix, and it can take a while, and you see me add a little bit more water into this just to sort of thin it a little bit more. This is a perfect opportunity now for me, while I'm mixing, to ask, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you do like my content, please hit that sub button, and if you enjoy this content, like, give us a thumbs up and ring that bell as well, and drop a comment as well if you kind of like have problems with bases, or if there's any type of bases that you would like me to do, because I'd like to build on this this video with and sort of explore lots of different ways of doing some bases. So once that's mixed, now what you want to do is just gently dab the brush onto it and use the capillary action of the sand and the basing material to pull that paint off the brush and basically cover it. Now I'll be honest, this base wasn't 100% dry, so that's why I'm being a little bit soft with it, because obviously filming, I don't really have time to like wait all day. for it to dry, so I've kind of like got it to dry enough, but I'm still being a little bit careful with it because obviously this is a wet liquid glue water mix going on top of the PVA glue, and because it's not fully dry it will reactivate it, and in some cases it kind of did, but you kind of just want to do this, and then you definitely want to leave this overnight. You want to just leave it to dry properly and let it get nice and hard, so there's no risk at all of when you come in to do the dry brushing later on that you're going to pull any of it off. So as you can see, just going around making sure that everything is done and just making sure that it's all around the edges as well, and then you're good to go. But the good thing about this is once this is done, you can basically just build up straight away. Now you could do this, but in the second method you'll see why I prefer that method of basing over this one, because this one can be quite time consuming, where in the second method is way better. So now I leave this to dry for a couple of hours, and then once it's dry and it's pretty hard and solid, I'm going to start dry brushing. Now this is a dry brush from Rosemary CO. These are the same brushes that Artist Opus use, but they're a little bit cheaper, and you can get them from Rosemary CO. They're actually a link below in the description if you want to go and grab yourself some and help out the channel at the same time. So I'm going to dry brush this with some Mournfang Brown. So I'm just going to get this piece of tissue and then vigorously rub the vast excess paint off the brush. These brushes are absolutely brilliant, so you should definitely go and check them out. This is a medium-sized brush, perfect for what we're doing here. And then just lightly dry brush over the top. You can dry brush over the top of this as many times as you think you need, because the more you'll dry brush over it, the more of the Mournfang Brown you'll leave behind, and you'll build up that color to a stronger intensity. So dry brush as many times as you want as necessary. I did this about twice, and then that was me. Again, I'm being super careful with this because I haven't let this fully dry, and the reason why is obviously because of filming, so I think a little bit of it does slowly come up at one point, and I just push that back down. So the next layer is I'm using some Scrag Brown, all the Games Workshop paints, and this will just brighten it up a little bit before we really sort of come into the final highlights. And again, just like before, carefully dry brushing it over around the stone, and yeah, just very nice, careful, light dry brush. You notice I'm pulling the brush in one direction, and that's just to sort of, you know, pick everything out. You move the base around and come in from different directions. There's really cool ways of like doing OSL or light effect and like shadows and highlights and stuff, but we can explore that kind of thing later on with other basing videos. Okay, for the next highlight or the next stage of painting, we're going to use Karnak stone, and this is to kind of get that sort of like dried mud look, and give it a good dry brush as usual, and then straight back into it, and you'll see it straight away. That sort of brings out all of that sort of the lighter colors, and yeah, this is it. There's one final stage of highlighting after this, and then we're going to go on to add in the flock. Okay, so the final stage of painting, Screamer Skull by Games Workshop. This is pretty bright, so be very light, and I make sure that I get the vast majority of the paint off the brush because I don't want this overpowering it, and then very carefully just lightly dry brush over the top. And you can see that I'm mainly concentrating on the edges of the base because that's where the majority of the light should be, because it's going to sort of give that halo effect around from where the model is. Now in a later video, what I'll do is I'll explain how you attach your miniatures to bases when you do this type of method with like the basing and the miniature separately, because you can't just glue the model to the top of this base because it will not have a good firm anchor, because there's obviously sand and glue between the base and the actual miniature itself, and that can break and come off. So here we are, we're getting a little bit of green flock, and I'm just splodging some of this PVA glue to one side in little blobs around, and we're going to be putting the static grass and the flock onto there. If you don't want to use this type of stuff, you can go out and get yourself some of the pre-made tufts, and they could just be glued on with a little bit of super glue and apply pressure to the top. Again, in later videos we're going to be exploring different basing methods, and I do have some flock and tufts and flowers and stuff like that to make some really cool looking bases. But this is purely for beginners and people just starting out. Okay, so that's the base done, but now I'm going to show you my preferred method, and that is my preferred method. These are two very different types of bases, but the end goal is exactly the same. So this is my preferred method, and I like using this stuff from AK. This tub cost me about £10, and as you can see, it's basically paint and lots of sand, and it's just like texture paint. Now, Games Workshop do sell their own, and they are expensive. You're paying about half the price for basically a shade size tub of texture paint that you don't really get much. So, but from AK, they sell these for about £10. I got mine from my local hobby store, and I've had this for some time, and it's barely dented. It's going to last me a while, and they have all different types. So this is just mud. You can get like deserty stuff, you can get wintry effects, you can get even thicker mud than this. So there's a lot of cool different types of basing paint that you can use for your bases and your army. So if your local hobby store does check them out, or Element Games, link in the description below, they sell all of this type of stuff. So check out AK Interactive's sort of basing paint, and you'll probably find one that your army project needs. So yeah, they're really good. But this is not the only company that do them. I think like Army Painter also do them, Games Workshop do them, and I think Vallejo have their own sort of basing texture paint as well. So there's plenty to choose from out there, and I highly recommend using this stuff over the previous method, because this is definitely so much easier and far less time consuming. So once it left it to dry, and by the way, this took about half an hour, 45 minutes to dry. It is quite warm here in Northern Ireland right now, and I basically started painting. So basically exactly the same way as before, Montfang Brown dry brush, and as you can see, it kind of leaves a texture. And what's really cool about the basing paint is you can actually kind of sculpt detail into it. So if you want to like put footprints and stuff, you could get like a marine foot and push it into a thicker blob and then pull it out, and it will kind of leave that sort of foot imprint into it. And once it's almost drying and it's kind of got that dry crust over the top but it's still wet underneath, you can kind of push things into it and leave that indentation. So it's really, really cool. There are other modeling sort of texture paints out there that are a little bit better for things like that. If you want to check out Night Shift, he does a lot of historical models, and he uses this putty type stuff, which is really cool. Not too sure where to get it from here in the UK, but he's kind of cool. So again, just like the first base, I'm just dry brushing this with some Scribe Brown. For all of the basing painting side, I'm going to be doing it exactly the same colors. It's kind of just to show you the sort of how the method can be applied to different ways and how easy it is to do it. There's nothing stopping you from painting like, you know, like a grey tones or like a pink tone if you really wanted to, or bright orange and reds if you wanted to do Mars. So now going in with the Karnak stone, and you'll see this straight away, and I think this sort of painting method and this texture paint really sort of shows each other off right now, because as soon as I put this paint on, you'll see the base just completely change, and it's really cool to see. Like you really sort of see that detail get pulled out straight away compared to the other the previous example that I did with the sort of sandy base mix. Like, look, how cool is that? So good. So definitely, this is definitely the way to go for it. Also go over the stone while you're doing it as well, just to give that a couple of highlights. So once that's done, what we're going to be doing now is just going in there with some Screamer Skull, just to give it a final highlight and just to pick everything out. And how cool does that look? And then the last thing to do is just rim the base. But I want to cover rimming the base and everything else in another video, because I want to show you how to clean up the rims, because sometimes with texture paint and glue and paint and everything else, you might leave it a little bit rough and ready, and it can kind of look a bit crap. So just a little bit of a cleanup will often sort of bring that in. So now, just like before, we're going to be adding some grass, and this is the grass, a little bit of glue, the wonders of editing to speed things up. Plus you missed out the fact that I just had a absolute crap load of static grass stuck all over my hand because I'd put my skin cream on and didn't realise, and my hand was still quite sticky from it, and it literally stuck, so I had to edit that out because it looked very silly. I should really do an outtakes, because that would have been really funny. But anyway, here we go, just blobs of glue, and we're getting in. You can actually see all the stack grass under my broken nail, which it is actually growing back now, which is kind of cool. It's looked rather gnarly at the very beginning when I come back onto YouTube at the beginning of the year. But if you've been around on the channel, you can kind of sort of notice the nail getting fixed. So yeah, just stick it on, nicely spread out, nice blobs of glue, and you can already see the difference between the two bases already. But what we're going to be doing after this is I'm going to show you an actual process of doing it on a miniature, because again, gluing miniatures onto this, you're not really going to be able to use plastic glue. You're going to have to use things like super glue, and that's not necessarily going to give you an amazingly strong bond. So here I am, I'm just sprinkling this on over the top, not dunking it in like I did before. I like to sprinkle, and in the other one I actually use tweezers, because sometimes you might not be able to get the static grass where you want it. So just carefully tapping in the side of the base just to get the excess off, and then that's it. That's the base done, ready for the rimming and applying the model. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put all of that into practice with an actual miniature on the base. This is a new Cities of Sigmar miniature that I'm painting up for my new army. It's one of the new Cavaliers from the launch box. Absolutely amazing model, love it. So as you can see, the model can get in the way. Straight away, it can get in the way. So we've got to be very careful with getting this in. And it's a cavalry model, and it's slightly raised at the front, so it makes it a little bit easier. So it's kind of just like painting this onto the base. You just got to take your time and just be careful with what you're doing with it. And if you do get this onto the painting model, get a clean brush and wet it, and then wipe it off and quite a few times, and it will come off. You know, it is literally like an acrylic type paint, so it is water based, so you are able to remove it while it's still wet. Once it dries, unfortunately it ain't coming off. It's like basically paint and sand. So just take your time and be careful with what you're doing, you should be fine. So there you go, I'm splodging it all on, and it looks kind of cool. And once we get that done, we are then going to paint it. So I left it to dry for a bit. I used my hairdryer to dry it out a little bit more, and then once it was dry, we're going to start the painting. And it's exactly the same process with how I've done all of the other bases in this video. We're going to do Mournfang Brown, and we're going to dry brush over the top. And now one of the things that you will notice when I'm dry brushing is I'm pulling the brush from the center of the base to the outside of the base. So you'll see me pulling it in like this, pulling it out. And the reason why is that creates the vast majority of the paint will be on the outside, not on the inside, and it'll kind of sort of create like a slight shadow. You won't really see it on the video, but it kind of is there when you see it in person. And it's just and it also makes it easier that I'm not going to be going anywhere near the model with this brush, and it's kind of sort of makes sure that I'm not going to make any mistakes on the miniature. I just like to point out how much I love these Cavalier models for the Cities of Sigmar. They are so beautiful. Next, Scribe Brown, and again, exactly like I did in the previous videos, the previous examples, we're just going to be building this up, and then we're going to be adding some grass to the end. So here we go. Again, give it a really good brush over a piece of tissue. You can use a piece of card or one of those Artist Opus textured boards if you've got one. But again, as you can see, just carefully, just working from the inside to the outside, just to build up those colors. And as you can see, I'm not going all the way in. I'm always moving out away from the model, and that's the key. And then again, Karnak stone, give it a really good brush, and we're going to attack the model with it. So just like before, working from the inside out, and just carefully just working around the base, making sure not to get anything on the model. Now you will notice that it has a little bit of sculpted part on the miniature around the back feet. Now all I did was paint that entirely Mournfang brown, and then while I've been dry brushing over the top, I've been making sure to catch some of that every now and again, and then when it comes to later on, I'll be basically gluing a bit of grass over the top of that so you don't really see it. But I thought this might be a little bit helpful because you don't really see an actual miniature. Sometimes it's kind of just the base, and this time you're actually getting to see a miniature be done for the base. And then here's a little bit of the Screamer skull just for the final sort of stage of the painting, and then we're just going to be adding the grass, and that's it. So there's no point in me showing you that. I'll just jump to the finished example and you'll get to see it done in a couple of seconds. So I hope you liked it. I've really enjoyed it. If there's anything that you want me to cover and basing wise, drop it in the comments below. And yeah, thanks very much. And here he is, all the base done. And that is the video. Hope you this helps, and I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration for when it comes to bases, and like maybe show you that bases aren't that hard to do. I'm going to be doing a few more basing videos. We're going to be working along with doing some stuff with plastic card. Going to show you how to make your own rocks rather than actually buying slate using milliput and Fimo clay. And we're just going to generally just do a series of bases. So fire on down at the bottom if you like this, and if there's any type of bases that you want me to see, urban, spaceships, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll see what I can do. Thanks very much for enjoying this and watching it to the very end. If you like what I do, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell and give us a thumb up, and I'll see you in the next one, peeps. Goodbye for now.